looking at clearing fractions today, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the bottom, and we're going to get rid of the fractions by multiplying by a number, okay? And so we're going to multiply by whatever our common denominator is here. So when I'm looking at 2 and 4, what's my common denominator going to be? 4, okay? And so what we're going to do is we are going to multiply the entire equation by 4. Okay, so off to the side here, we're going to go ahead and write this down. Okay, whoop. Just wait 1 second. Multiply, go ahead and write this down and we'll talk about it. Okay, multiply everything by the common denominator. Okay, so common denominator, if you've got a fraction with a 2x and a fraction with a 2 and a 4, your common denominator would have to be a 4. So that's what we're going to multiply by. Okay? All right. By the common denominator. Okay? So guys, I'm just looking at the bottom of my fractions and figuring out 2 and 4. 4 is my common denominator. Okay? Okay, now with that being said, off to the side here, I want you to write this down. We need to make sure that we understand that this is the same thing. When you have x divided by 2, all right, what number is in front of any variable when we don't play anything else? 1, okay? So you guys hopefully would agree that that would be the same thing as 1x divided by 2?
Yes.
Okay? Which is also the same thing as 1/2 x. Okay? So you need to understand that it doesn't matter if I divide it by 2 or multiply by half. All of these are saying the exact same thing. Okay? It doesn't matter how you write it. Okay? So when I start, and I go back to the problem and I look here, you are going to multiply all the parts by 4. So basically we're just distributing the 4. Okay? So we just talked about that x divided by 2 is the same as 1/2 x. So what is half of 4? 2. Okay? So we're going to have 2x. Now take 4 times 1. Okay, 4. Now I'm going to take 1/4 times 4. Now, if you're not sure, it's okay to have to do a little scratch work off to the side. There's nothing wrong with that. So 1/4 times 4 over 1, right?
Yep.
What's going to happen with those 4s?
Cancel.
Yeah, they're going to cancel to 1. So what is 1/4 times 4? 1. Okay. So equals 1x. And now I'm going to take the 4 times -6. And what do we get there? Not 24. Negative 24. Very good. Okay. So I'm multiplying by the common denominator. I'm just multiplying all the parts. So now I've got rid of all the fractions. Now we're right back to where we were yesterday. Okay? So we're adding in one extra step. That's it today. Okay? One extra step where we're multiplying by the common denominator to clear out the fraction. Okay? All right. So now this is reviewed at this point. Okay, he says subtract 4 from both sides. That would be a fine first step. So that cancels. So we have 2x on the left-hand side and 1x minus 28 on the right. Okay, Jimmy, what are we going to do now?
Add 28.
Oh, be careful. We put the non-x's together.
Combine the 2x. And
So how are we going to do that?
Divide by 2.
If we've got x on this side, we want to kick this guy over, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to do that?
Times it by 1.
Anybody want to help them out? Subtract the x. Okay. All right, so we're going to subtract 1x from both sides. So that cancels. And we end up with x equals negative 28. Okay. All right, does anybody have questions so far for me? So the first step, that's the new stuff. After that, it's review. Okay, yes ma'am?
How would you get the 2x plus 4 in there?
This is, remember we said that this was the same thing as this? So if we're taking 1/2 times 4,
Oh, okay.
or just, how I always think of it, what's half of 4? Half of 4 is just 2. Don't overthink the halves, all right?
Why do you have to? Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Okay, yes?
Wouldn't it be 1x equals
Well, that's the same thing. 1x or x is the same thing.
divided by that?
And anything divided by 1. It's just itself. There's no negative here. It's not a negative x. Okay? Yep.
Okay, so you know how you said multiply everything by the common denominator?
Yes.
So how did you, you just, never mind, you already answered that
Okay.
question. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, so let's try number 2. All right, don't say anything. Just think about what would you multiply by here. Don't say it out loud. Okay, Chase, what do you think?
12. No.
12 would work,
6.
but 6 would be smaller, right? Okay, so if I'm looking at my bottoms here, looking at the denominator, I've got 3 and 6. All right, so I'm going to multiply by 6, right? And we're going to multiply all the parts by 6. Okay, so let's start with the first one. We're going to take 2/3 times 6. Again, it's okay to do a little scratch work off to the side, right? So if I've got 2/3 times 6, what's going to cross cancel here? Okay, what do we get when we cross cancel the 6 and 3?
1 and 2.
Good, 1 and 2. So what would that be when I multiply it?
4.
Okay, so I got 4 plus, now I'm going to take 1/6 times 6. Guys, the nice thing is if you're multiplying by the denominator and it's the same as the bottom, like if I'm multiplying 6 here, 6 here, these are just always going to cancel. It's just going to be whatever's left on top. Okay? So when you've got 1/6 times 6 over 1, those are always going to cancel out. So it's just going to be whatever you had up on top. Okay, so plus 1q or q. All right, so again, we have a 6 on the bottom, so what would my top number be here? So we have 5q, right? And again, if you do it off the side, it's okay, do it off to the side. So the 6's will cancel, okay? So 5q, and now you've got 1/3 times 6 over 1. What'd you just say? 2, that's right. Cross cancels, and you end up with a plus 2. Okay, so clearing the fractions so it makes it easier to solve. Okay? Okay, does anybody have a question about that first step? Okay. Grayson, what do you want to do to start this off?
Subtract 2.
Good, subtract the 2 off. That'll work. So we're going to get 2 plus 1q, or just q, equals 5q. Okay, so Grayson said to subtract 2, so I'm going to go back here. So we're subtracting 2 from both sides. Okay, so that cancels. So we're going to get 2 plus 1q equals 5q. All right, now what do we do, Braxton? Good, subtract the 1q or the q over. So that cancels. So 2 equals 4q. All right. Thomas, what are we going to do now?
Divide by 4.
Good, divide by 4. So that cancels. So what's my final answer going to be? Good, Francie, 1/2. Because 2/4 reduces to 1/2. Okay, so now on number 3. When we have parentheses, what was the first thing we're going to do when we see parentheses? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and keep that first step as our rule, okay? We're going to distribute first. Now, guys, it's great. It's not hard when there's a 1 on top, all right? So when I'm going to take this, what's 1/3 times in? 1/3 in. So we've got 1/3 in. Okay, what's 1/3 times 1? 1/3. Okay, so now you're going to take the 1/6 times 3. Well, guys, 1/6 times 3, you're always just going to have anything times 1 is just going to be whatever we have on top, right? So we've got to have 3 and 6, or we should cross cancel and call it what? 1/2, right? Cross cancel. So we've got 1/2 in, and then we've got 1/6 times 5. If you want to put it over 1, you can. So what's that going to be? 5/6. Good job. Minus 5/6. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have a question about that so far? We're good? Everybody understands we just distributed so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's still our first step, just like it was yesterday. Distribute. Now that looks like 2 and the first one we did. So we're going to clear it. And how are we going to clear all these fractions out? What are we going to do?
Times by 6.
times by 6, very good, okay? Common denominator, multiply by 6, okay? All right, so let's go through. What's 1/3 times 6? 2, very good, there's a 1 and a 2. So we have 2 in, well, we just did 1/3 times 6, so plus 2. All right, and like I said, don't overthink the halves, what's half of 6?
3.
3. Okay, and then we've got 5, 6 times 6, what's gonna happen there? Yep, well, the 6 are gonna cancel, we're left with 5. So minus 5. Does that make sense? Guys, if you have multiplied by the denominator, the common denominator, and you have a fraction at this point, you've done something wrong. Okay? Because we're clearing out the fractions to get just whole numbers there. Okay? All right, Rylan, start us off. What do you want to do here to solve this?
Okay. Could you add 2 or add 5? Both sides.
Well, you tell me which one you're going to do. I'll tell you if it's right.
Okay. You subtract 5 both sides?
Well, if it's a minus 5, how are you going to do the minus 5?
Oh,
What's the opposite of minus 5?
adding.
There you go. So you want to add 5 to both sides. Okay?
Okay.
Or you could have subtracted the 2 over here.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right, so that cancels. So I've got 2 in plus 7 equals 3 in. Okay, Chase, what are we going to do now?
Subtract 3 in.
Oh.
No, 2 in.
Yeah, I'd subtract the 2, otherwise you won't have anything left over here. So that cancels. So 7 equals what's 3 in minus 2 in? 1 in or just in, right? So n equals 7. Okay? All right, I'm going to write the next one on the board. I want you to take a second and kind of get it started for me while I'm writing it up on the board, okay?